Hello and welcome to the Lotus build. If you're watching this, hopefully you've purchased a Lotus. And if you have, I want to thank you for that. In this build, we're going to need lots of razor blades, a ruler, a nice special soldering iron, and a low melt, and I repeat, low melt Scott glue gun. Could be any glue gun, but make sure it's low melt. Now we're going to locate the scrap top pieces of the core. We're going to go ahead and glue these together. Comes in handy for the assembly later on in the video. And it takes just a little dollop of glue at both ends. This is not going to fly, so this is temporarily needs to hold together. Make sure it's flat. Hold it together for 30 seconds or so and go and set that aside. We're going to use that later. Now locate your left and right wing cores. Align them. Make sure the leading edges are straight. And they should be. But if they're not, you want to make sure. I've made this little, called a jig. Just a piece of 100 grit sandpaper glued to a piece of scrap wood. And this stuff stands like balsa wood, this foam, that's why I like it. So you don't need to be too aggressive. Just light strokes back and forth, rolling it over, making sure you're continuing the airfoil. Again, not too aggressive. You get a really straight leading edge. Let's do the other side. Again, just really soft sanding. Now we're going to temporarily glue these two panels together, and I'll explain why in a minute. But you want to glue them together and make sure the noses are lined up so your fuselage fits really nice. Trailing edge doesn't matter as much. I'm going to put just a little dollop of glue on the nose and the trailing edge. Glue them together, hold it for 30 seconds or so. Again, making sure the nose is aligned. Now we're going to go ahead and trace the cutout for the motor bay. You can see in this drawing, you can refer to that for the dimensions. I have a small little template I use because I've made a few of these. Now let's go ahead and do the fuselage bay. Again, I've made a template for this. You can refer to your drawing for the dimensions. And you can use a razor blade to cut these out. I actually have a scroll saw because I am a woodworker. So I have quite a few tools in my shop. I use a scroll saw to cut it out. But right here, we're going to make a groove for a root spar. And you want to hold off just 3/4 inch shy of the bay you're going to cut out for your propeller. But you're going to go all the way to the fuselage bay. The reason I do this is it not only adds strength, but it adds a great channel or a tunnel for your wires for your motor. This is the soldering iron I'm talking about. I get this at Home Depot. It's got a big shoulder on it. And with a 10mm piece of scrap wood, it just does the right depth, makes a really nice cut. And this is the reason I don't glue the whole core together, because if that was glued together, going through hot glue would make a heck of a mess. It would gum up, have to clean it out. So that's why I'm cutting through foam. Use the edge of the spar to dig out any debris and do a test fit. Okay, now I've cut them out. My scroll saw, you can see the panels are two pieces again. Now we're going to permanently glue them together. I use a piece of parchment paper underneath in case any glue spills out. You don't glue your wing to your bed, I mean to your bench. I meant to take a picture of where I'm gluing this, but you'll be able to tell where the wings meet. You don't want to get any in the channel of the root spar. I would make it move it back and forth to make sure the glue is distributed evenly. Lay it flat, hold it for 30 seconds or so. I believe here I'm gluing in the root spar. Again, I made a template for my servos. Here's the drawing you can refer to. It's not super important, but this is where I put my servos. Right at the C&G. Go and trace those out. And I use a ruler to draw a line because I make two channels for the servo leads. This is where this bed comes in handy. You're going to put your bottom spar in. Just make sure that it makes sure that your plane sits level and flat on the bench. I measure down about 1.5 inches from the tip of the leading edge. And again, a 10mm piece of scrap wood. Double check my measurement. Again, that's on the drawing. I use a couple brads to hold my guide down. Works really good. The spars are 31 inches long, so you want to make sure that your groove is a little over 31 inches. 31. It's about 15 5/8. That's where I measure out. Gives up a little bit of room on the ends. Your spar is going to come in two pieces, and you'll glue them together with a coupler, so that makes the box smaller for shipping, saves money. But here I am cutting out the bottom spar groove. This has been sped up, but it is pretty fast. Go and use the edge or the end of the spar to clear out any debris, or just to make sure it's going to fit nice. Just going to snap right in. Do a test fit. Let's go ahead and glue it in. You can run 2 or 3 beads or all the way, it doesn't matter. Ran out of glue, I hate it. Snap it in, hold it flat for about 30 seconds. You want the spar to sit a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch below the surface, because we're going to spackle over this later to make it really clean. So you want everything, your root spar, to sit just below the surface, and same with your servos. Here I'm tracing the outline of the servos with a razor blade. What this does is it creates a very straight line if you're using a soldering iron. I use a trim router, but it just makes a really nice, clean edge. Again, I'm a woodworker, so I have quite a few tools at my disposal, and this trim router just gives it a nice machined cut out. Do the other side. I'm gonna do a test fit. Doesn't have to be super snug. You're gonna glue it in. That fits pretty good. Test the other side. Looks pretty good. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm heating up a scrap piece or scrap piece of control rod with a torch. Again, this foam melts really easily, so I'm taking my time, kind of letting the rod cool down a little bit. But I use my straight edge. I'm going to carve a groove for the servo leads to go into the fuselage bay where the receiver is going to be. And if you go it a little hot, it makes a little wider groove. It's okay, we're going to spackle over that. Do the other side now. Again, test fit your servo. Make sure it sits just below the surface. 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch is fine. Same with your servo leads. Make sure you can push them down far enough. This is important to center your servos, especially if they're new. I use this little checker. I'll put a link for it. But this thing works really well. It's a battery tester and a servo tester. After you cycle your servos to make sure they work, I'll go ahead and center them. 1500 is centered. Before I install my control horns. You want to install your control horns so they're totally vertical. And I don't know why Emax does this. They make the holes in the control horn so small, so you have to drill them out to a 1/16 of an inch. It's a lot easier to do it now than when it's installed in the plane, because these control horns sit very near the surface, so to get a drill in there is almost impossible. So I drill them out to 1/16 of an inch. Let's go ahead and glue that in there. I use about a pea-size dollop of glue. I want to make sure you don't go towards the front of the servo where the control horn moves. You want to glue that in place. I'm going to go to the other side now. Center at 1500. Screw in your control horn so it's totally vertical. And again, drill out the control horn with a 1/16 drill bit. Hold this about 20 or 30 seconds. I'm going to install your servo leads in the groove. I use a little dollop of glue at the beginning and the end of the servo lead just to make sure it doesn't pop up when we're doing our spackle coat. Same with the other side. What I'm doing here is I'm pushing down the control horns so they're totally horizontal, like that picture. It makes it really nice for laminating and you know, to work around the control horns. Now I'm putting a small piece of painter's tape to cover the control horns. because we're going to spackle these, and obviously you don't want to get any spackle in the way of the movement of the control horn. It's a lightweight spackle you can buy at Lowe's, Ace, whatever is near you, Sutherland's, when it's in your area. Speed up a little bit because this is boring. This gives it a really clean finish. It depends where you are. If it's summertime, you can set it outside. It'll dry in about an hour. But if it's wintertime, you have to wait till the next day. Let's go ahead and spackle in the bottom spar. This is the product I use, Easy Patch. I think it's like $20, but it goes a long way. After it's totally dry, I use a vibrating sander with like 100 grit sandpaper. Do not use a random orbital sander. It'll really gouge your foam, and you don't want to do that. So this is just a vibrating sander. It does not turn. Take away your bed. I can stand the whole wing with this, and it really turns out nice. I wouldn't go any more aggressive than 100 grit. 120 would work. I could go ahead and finish it here with 200 grit sandpaper. Do some finish sanding. Make sure it's nice and smooth. Make sure your leading edge is nice and smooth. Here I take a razor blade and I cut a line where the painter's tape is. This ensures that I get a nice clean lift when I pull it up like this. And that's what I'm doing here. Just a nice clean edge for your control horn to move. Then I take a damp cloth, go over the whole plane, spray with 77 adhesive, and time for lamination. So thanks for watching, and continue with the next video if you have any questions on laminating. Thank you very much.